I'm Talia Ricci. Tonight, police are investigating after a deadly daylight shooting in North York.
I would think that as the male was driving his vehicle and it came to rest there, that someone would have been shooting at him.
North of the city, a separate shooting leaves another victim dead. We'll have the latest from both scenes. Plus,
in the last 24 hours, we've received between about 35 to 68 millimeters.
Heavy rain showers bring a flood warning into effect. We hear some tips from the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And
I fundamentally disagree with city or government building.
Private sector can't do everything. The government has a role to play.
6 of the leading mayoral candidates square off in a housing debate, with just 2 weeks to go before Election Day. There were 2 fatal midday shootings today in the GTA, including a shooting in North York where a man was killed on a busy road. Meg Roberts starts us off tonight.
In the middle of the day, a man shot multiple times in this vehicle. Police found the Mercedes van pulled up on the sidewalk on Steeles Avenue West. The man in his late 40s was pronounced dead on scene.
I would think that as the male was driving his vehicle and it came to rest there, that someone would have been shooting at him.
About a kilometer down the road, closer to Fenmar Drive, evidence markers scattered on the eastbound lanes.
I think we have approximately 11 shell casings found on the street.
This is what he sees going off the road, and he's on the curb over there.
This pet shop owner watching the Mercedes van slowly come to a stop on his surveillance camera. He says a customer ran into the store saying someone fell out of the driver's side door onto the road.
It was a chaos here. Like, it was just, I lost business because of it. What are you going to do, right?
Police say they were searching for a suspect and are unclear as to what the motive behind the attack is.
There's no danger to the public at this point right now, but obviously we don't have anybody in custody at this point. So there is somebody out there that committed this crime this morning, and unfortunately we'd like to get him in custody, him or her in custody.
Toronto police are asking anyone who may have saw the shooting or have video surveillance to come forward. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, York Regional Police are investigating a deadly double shooting at a home in Aurora.
When officers arrived, they found 2 victims suffering from gunshot wounds, an adult female and an adult male. The adult female was transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, but sadly, the male, an adult, was found deceased.
It happened at 12:15 this afternoon in the Stubbs Lane area near Leslie and Wellington Street East. The York Police Homicide Unit has taken over the investigation. Police say they don't currently have any suspects, but they do believe the shooting was targeted. The Special Investigations Unit is looking into an incident where police fired their guns while responding to reports of a stolen vehicle. It took place around lunchtime yesterday. Megan Fitzpatrick reports.
So this started unfolding about noon yesterday when Toronto police got a report of a stolen car. They say they began tracking it. They located it in the College and Dufferin area. This is on the west side of Toronto, quite a busy neighborhood, especially on a Sunday. And Toronto police, the SIU, saying that an interaction ensued with the vehicle occupants, and 2 Toronto police officers fired their guns at the vehicle. They say then that the vehicle fled and then later struck a pole. And then 2 arrests were made of a 26-year-old man and a 45-year-old man. The SIU saying that the younger man, the 26-year-old, was transported to hospital with injuries, though they haven't specified the nature of those injuries or how serious they are. Now, witnesses in the area, again, a busy area, reported hearing the stolen vehicle speeding through the residential neighborhood, being chased by multiple police cars. Here's a little bit more of what we heard from one eyewitness.
The car was pulling out and the cops were commanding the guy, screaming at the guy to get out of the car, and he was banging into a couple of cars and the cop almost got hit, and that's when they fired and the guy drove past me.
Now, again, the SIU not confirming this morning the nature of the injuries or the condition of that suspect that was brought to the hospital, but they do say it doesn't appear that either of the suspects was shot, and also saying that at this time it doesn't appear that the men were armed. Now, they are appealing to the public for any information related to this investigation. They'll be interviewing witnesses, interviewing the officers involved, and they're asking any members of the public who have any photos or videos or, again, any information related to this to get in touch with the Special Investigations Unit. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Toronto has seen quite a mix of weather over the last week, with torrential rain showers today bringing a high risk of flooding around the city's watersheds. Patrick Swadden has the details.
From this to this, and today, this. Torontonians have been on a bumpy weather ride the last few days.
I'm glad that the rain probably took some of the smoke away. That wasn't pleasant.
But after torrential rain earlier, some are a little more cautious. The Toronto Region Conservation Authority issuing a high risk of flooding for Toronto's rivers and streams.
With a system like this, that's dumped, like I said, between 35 and almost 70 millimeters of rain over time, over 24 hours, it's systems like the Don River watershed where we start to see flooding.
And that can mean flooding of major transportation routes, like the Don Valley Parkway. The water stayed just under the DVP today, but Rayana Rajabali says it can affect other transit too.
There's a lot of infrastructure right where all of that water will outlet into Lake Ontario. We have GO train lines, we have the Don Valley Parkway, we have Bayview Extension.
And some of the city's routes had to be closed down. But it's not just those traveling who are affected. The city even closing some fields and trails today after they became immersed in water. Scott Jarvis remembers the Toronto floods from 10 years ago.
And you could come out here and see that everything south of the River Street exit was flooded, and all the pathways down here were flooded.
And while today wasn't nearly that bad,
it was neat to see ducks floating around on the path.
Others saying the weather from today reminds them of elsewhere.
I was missing my home, Nepal, and here I can see the weather and the water, and this weather seems like Nepal.
The rain calmed this afternoon, but the TRCA is warning that roads can still be particularly dangerous.
Never drive through ponded water. You can't speak to the stability of the roadway underneath it.
Rajapali says even after it stops raining, it can take a while for floodwater to dissipate. So if you're driving and see something like this, better to avoid it than get stuck in it. Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
And there's a live look at the city skyline. A little drier out there now and sitting at about 15 degrees. Victor Paulo joins us now with the first look at the forecast, and it was a rainy one out there today.
Now, when it comes to the day that we had today, it was quite the cloudy one, Talia, but one thing we can look forward to when it comes to this week is once we get through the heavy rain and we get through the below seasonal temperatures and those thunderstorms, we are in store for some sunny days ahead. Now, 23.3 is your average high and 11.4 is your average low. Now, taking a look at some watches and warnings across the regions, you do see that coming off Lake Ontario, there is a severe wind warning. So from all the way down to the Windsor area, coming up all the way to Toronto, you definitely want to make sure you are aware of that. Now, also some of the surrounding areas are expecting a special weather statement, but not in the Windsor area, more closer to Toronto. The reason that they're going to be experiencing that is because if you do take a look at the radar here when it comes to Tuesday afternoon, as well as up and through till Wednesday, all of this rain and thunder showers that pass through will be bringing close to 30 to 50 millimeters of rain. Now, when it comes to the rain that we're expecting across the regions, you do see it's going to be higher closer to Kingston. Not so much 4 millimeters we're expecting in Windsor. And when it comes to the 3-day forecast, what we could expect in the surrounding regions, well, below seasonal temperatures is going to be the big theme. Good thing is you could turn off those air conditioners. Stay tuned for the 7-day forecast. Back to you, Talia.
Thanks, Victor. 6 of the city's top polling mayoral candidates were quizzed today on what they do to solve Toronto's housing affordability crisis. It was during a debate hosted by Maribel Tarouk at the University of Toronto. Sean Jeffords has the highlights for us.
The city's mayoral candidates had one last chance to make an impression on voters before advance polls close tomorrow. The University of Toronto School of Cities debate focused on housing affordability. It delved deep into policy questions, but the divide between the approaches was on full display.
And my greatest frustration when I hear some of these comments today is that, with all due respect, Olivia Chow talks caringly about the issue, but doesn't show how she's going to pay for it. And then Mark Saunders, it seems like the only government-built housing he supports are penitentiaries.
Candidates were asked if Toronto should be a public builder or continue to let the private sector take the lead. Olivia Chow, Josh Matlow, and Mitzi Hunter favor the public builder model where government takes an active role in housing. In a bylaw, Mark Saunders and Brad Bradford believe in private sector involvement that sees business lead. Bylaw challenged Chow on what she called a bias against developers.
I've been hearing Olivia Chow answer question after question after question, and the bias towards builders in the city is just unbelievable. You will not solve housing in the city without builders at the table.
Well, for 14 years, I represented downtown Toronto, including University of Toronto. And guess what? Look at all the development by the private sector.
Mark Saunders says the city government should not be in the building business.
I fundamentally disagree with city or government building. They continuously get in their own way. When you look at housing now, they had their own property and there's still not a shovel in the ground.
Chow says one of the great mistakes of the past several decades was the city getting out of building housing.
Private sector can't do everything. The government has a role to play.
Toronto's current Housing Committee Chair Brad Bradford stressed that the city needs to fight rent evictions, but it also needs to work to preserve existing rental housing stock in the city.
The best, most affordable rental stock that we have in the city is the rental buildings that are already there.
Voters can still cast a ballot at one of the city's 50 advanced polls. Those stations close tomorrow at 7 p.m. Election day in Toronto is June 26th. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
Mayoral candidate Anthony Furey has been climbing in recent polls. Today, the former Toronto Sun columnist laid out his platform, but not before listing the issues he says are causing a decline in the city.
Crumbling infrastructure, gridlock, fear of situations on our subways, crime, messiness on the streets, on public transit, bike lanes that are making things so difficult for people and blocking ambulances from getting by. What on earth is going on there? Everyone's complaining about those bike lanes. Needles in the playgrounds, like I said. Tents in parks like we haven't seen before.
Furey says as mayor, he'd hire 500 more uniformed police officers and pledge to bring in no new taxes. He would also halt plans for any new supervised injection sites in the city. On finances, Furey says he wants to launch a spending review and rethink. Welcome back. East End transit riders are already dealing with major service changes due to Ontario Line construction. And today, the TTC is warning that more changes are on the way. Tyler Cheese has more.
We know that construction season is always very challenging for our transit customers, especially when we do major reroutes.
Some significant adjustments are coming to TTC service routes in the East End this weekend. First up, construction on Broadview between Danforth and Queen means the 504 King and 505 Dundas streetcars won't run between Parliament Street and Broadview Station. Pape streetcar service will be increased and buses will be added to Carlton to help fill the gaps. At the same time, the intersection of Coxwell and Gerrard will also be closed to complete state of good repair work. The Coxwell bus will be cancelled in both directions, with riders encouraged to take the 31 Greenwood bus instead.
What we encourage our customers to do is to make sure they go on ttc.ca or just use any of your trip planning apps. You know, it's not the usual path that people are used to taking, but as long as you plug in where you're coming from and where you're going in an app, the information online will reflect what we're doing.
Checking with riders, some are frustrated while others are resigning themselves to longer commutes in the name of better transit.
I think it's catastrophe. We need service. I've been using TTC for 50 years, and every year is getting worse and worse and worse.
Construction has to happen, so it has to happen in the summer, so you understand on the one hand. On the other hand, with the increased delays on the subway, one could say, okay, well, alternatively, I can take the subway, but unfortunately, the delays are really have increased in the past few years.
In the meantime, advocates have other ideas on how to improve transit in the East End, like
implementing rapid TO bus lanes, those red bus lanes, that they've been very successful in Scarborough. They've been getting people around, and that's something that we need City Council to act on to improve the commutes and the lives of transit riders.
The TTC says as projects are completed, regular service will resume along the affected routes as soon as possible. All projects are expected to be completed by September. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
In response to the TTC board meeting, dozens of community-led organizations are calling on mayoral candidates to invest more into transit safety.
The transit system has been failing not only me, but Black, racialized, working poor communities for decades and decades. We pay so much money for a service that continues to fail us.
Representatives from several organizations were at the press conference at Yonge and Dundas Square this morning. It's in response to a report from the TTC saying safety and security on transit is improving. The coalition denounced the so-called Move Along policy, which discourages unhoused people from sheltering on transit. They want the next mayor to fund care-based transit safety solutions that reflect the needs of the community, and that includes more housing support. The city appears to be in the midst of a surge in termite infestations. We spoke to one resident in the Dufferin St. Clair area who recently discovered an infestation in his home after noticing a bulge in his hardwood flooring.
I thought it was water damage at first, but when I pulled the mattress up and pulled one of the towels up, I seen the little bugs go flying, running around inside there. I said, oh no, can't sleep in here tonight.
He's not the only one dealing with the issue. Orkin Canada tells CBC Toronto calls are up by more than 50% in the last 3 years. Despite popular belief, experts say they won't cause your house to cave in, but they can do major damage.
They consume 38.8 feet of 2x4, almost 40 feet annually. So if you compound that 40 feet now into the second, third, or fourth, or fifth year, and it's been ignored, then the structural integrity of the home, support joists, walls, drywall, then becomes compromised and will have to have some major repair.
The cost of treatment is about $5,000 for the average home and requires drilling through the ground beneath the house and using chemicals to control the infestation. Experts say it's not clear why the uptick is happening in the GTA. Security is ramping up outside a Miami courthouse. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is due there tomorrow to face federal charges related to national security. Idil Musa has the story.
Authorities in Miami say they're ready for Donald Trump's unprecedented court appearance Tuesday. The former president is facing dozens of charges over his alleged mishandling of classified documents, and police are preparing for protests from his supporters and his opponents.
We hope that tomorrow will be peaceful. We encourage people to be peaceful in them demonstrating how they feel, and we're going to have the adequate forces necessary to ensure that.
Trump is the first former president in U.S. history to face federal charges, but many of his supporters are downplaying the 49-page indictment, calling it politically motivated, as Trump vies to secure the Republican nomination for president. But one former Trump official says the charges are serious.
Not only is it powerful, it's very narrowly tailored. They didn't throw everything up against the wall to see what would stick. This really is a rifle shot, and I think it should be the end of Donald Trump's political career.
Across from Mar-a-Lago estate, Trump loyalists say they'll stand by him.
No matter what, he's the person that actually has made America better than what it was, and now it seems to be going downhill.
As Trump prepares to surrender to authorities in Miami Tuesday, he's encouraging his supporters to protest outside the courthouse. Idil Musa, CBC News, Washington.
Time for a short break, but stay with us. We'll take a look at your long-range forecast when we come back. For girls who want to play hockey, there are not many options in Toronto. So a mother took it upon herself to try and change that by creating her own league.
We started that first season with 15 girls, and we ended the season with 40 girls. And for the past 2 seasons we've been operating, we've had our max of 40 girls participating, and we now have a wait list. I could probably have about 60 girls in this coming season.
It's called the Tween Girls Hockey League. It allows girls between 7 and 15 the opportunity to learn and play hockey. While there is demand, the problem is finding city ice time.
We just don't have the ice capacity in city, but even when you combine private rinks with city rinks to meet all the demand. So it's a juggling act. It's making sure there's fairness in the system, that there's equity in the system, and that everyone gets a fair chance.
Councillor Pasternak has been helping Lasky with raising awareness of the issue. Due to ice permit policy, it is almost impossible for new leagues to find weekend ice time. She wants the city to redistribute ice time in a more equitable manner so that girls can get the same opportunities to play hockey as boys. And Vic is back now with a final check on the forecast. Some warmer temperatures coming our way.
Now, Tally, taking a look at the map of North America here, you can see when it comes down to the southern area of North America, it is quite hot over there. In comparison, you can see that's pretty much similar when it comes all the way from Alberta through the prairies and for northern Ontario as well, and also for central Quebec. Now, we're hoping to see more cooler temperatures in the next couple of days with all that rain that's coming our way, because when you do look at the regions for watches and warnings, we're actually in for a severe wind warning over by Lake Ontario, and these surrounding regions are expecting 30 to 50 millimeters of rain over the next couple of days. Now, looking at the radar here to see exactly what's going to be expected, well, when it comes to the warning for Tuesday, all the way up from Windsor through to Toronto is going to be a bit of scattered showers to start the day, but when it comes later towards after supper, it's going to be more of a consistent theme working its way. It's going to be mixed in with some thunderstorms. As you see that yellow mixed with the red, so those thunder showers, don't forget, if thunder roars, you want to make sure that you do go indoors. Now, when it comes to Tuesday overnight into Wednesday morning, as mentioned, still more rain for the region passing through, and it's not going to let up consistently till about we get to Thursday, Friday, and the weekend. Now, when it comes to tomorrow morning, the temperatures are going to be sunny with a mix of cloud, but it's only going to be 13 degrees, a little bit chilly. Now, when it comes to our 3 and 7 day forecast, one thing we can look forward to is we could turn off those air conditioners, because it's only going to be a high of 20, 21 degrees and lows of 11, 12, 13 degrees. But you do see the consistent theme of rain passing through the regions. When it comes to the weekend, once Friday passes, we're in store for some sunshine, which is really great news for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, as well as the following week. But the good thing about the sun we're receiving is going to be quite warm, because it's going to feel like 24 on Sunday. When it comes to Saturday and Monday as well, too, those are quite seasonal temperatures. Now, one thing you also want to make sure is that when it does come to that rain, we are expecting thunder showers between Tuesday and Wednesday, scattered, of course. So you want to make sure you are aware of your surroundings. And if it does roar outside, you do hear that thunder and lightning, you want to make sure you clear the way and you're nowhere around it. Make sure you stay tuned to the rest of the weather this week to see exactly when and where we can expect more sunshine to come by. Back to you, Talia.
Thanks, Victor. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Chris Glover has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and we're off the air at 11 because of the NHL playoffs. Good night.